Hello, Choden and I are here to talk about our new book, the Compassion-Based Living Course book. So I'm one of the authors. My name is Heather Regan-Addis. I'm a director and founder of the Mindfulness Association, and I've been teaching compassion for over 15 years, both the Mindfulness Association's compassion training and on the compassion module of the University of Aberdeen's Master's degree in Studies in Mindfulness. So we have taught this curriculum to hundreds of students, and it seems to be very successful, and the students experience a great transformation. And so we thought it would be a good idea to write a book about it.
And my name is Choden. Have been involved in teaching the compassion training for the last 15 years along with Heather and others. We look forward to speaking with you about this book and its benefits and what it could bring to your life.
Our motivation for writing it really is that so many of our students have benefited so much from this compassion training. It's useful for anyone who's kind of tormented by that inner critical voice, or who struggles with taking care of themselves and instead is always taking care of others. So our book, the Compassion-Based Living Course, will be published on the 28th of January 2025. So the book is a step-by-step training in compassion meditation, starting with self-compassion and then moving on to compassion for others. So you can read through the book at your own pace. So it includes teachings about compassion, practices about compassion, and you can access guided audio practices so that you're able to listen to Choden and myself and other tutors from the Mindfulness Association leading the compassion practices that we share in the book. It draws on Mahayana Buddhism, it draws on evolutionary psychology, general psychology, neuroscience, and kind of brings this all together into kind of a single journey, carries on through the book, and step by step we can develop our ability to cultivate compassion for ourselves and then cultivate compassion for those around us.
I think the key thing about this book is it is an experiential journey that equips you with the skills to bring compassion into your life and into those situations in which you need it. I think that the main benefit is that it helps us to cultivate an inner resource or an inner capacity to hold the difficult things that come up in life. Because the one thing about life is there are a lot of difficulties that are thrown in our path, both within our own minds and through external forces. So it kind of gives us this capacity to hold and take care of the kind of vulnerable parts of ourselves, and it also then on that basis gives us the capacity to do that for others. So it's really this cultivate this inner resource or an anchor. The sense is that this kind of resource that we cultivate is always okay in itself. We started to tap into an inner wellness and a part of our being that's inherently well, and from this place of inner wellness we can then meet the difficulties in our own life and in the lives of others. But we can say the main benefit is finding this right balance between self-compassion, taking care of ourselves, and compassion for others. Sometimes people think self-compassion is indulgent, but actually it's not at all. It's actually it's a process to cultivate maturity by really taking care of what we really need. Because when we do that for ourselves, then we are resourced to really look out for others. So invaluable about cultivating this inner resource. It's a bit like a friend that accompanies us in our life. So when we trip and fall, this inner resource, this inner friend we're cultivating, kind of helps us get to our feet. And it is there to support us. And also when good things happen in our life, that part of us celebrates our successes.
We also use the compassionate imagery practices that help people to feel safe within their own skin. People seem a lot happier actually with this inner resource, this inner friend to accompany them and support them through their life. Yeah. One aspect which is unique and very distinctive is this idea of the compassionate mess. So, we live in a culture and society where we're all expected to be perfect, and we expect ourselves to be perfect. But in this book, we talk about how the human condition isn't one of perfection, and that actually human life is very messy. We have these messy evolved brains, evolved for survival, not for happiness. We're stuck with a whole load of kind of very difficult habitual patterns that come from our conditioning. Really what we do is we recognize that life is a messy business. It's not a perfect thing. And on recognizing that, we can be compassionate to ourselves, and we can become what Rob Nairn calls a compassionate mess.
In Mahayana Buddhism, which is one of the sources we draw on in the book, they talk about the idea of compassion being a process of descent. It's not a process of ascent to perfection, but it's a process of descent to the mud at the bottom of a lake, which is similar to the idea of the mess. So the idea here is that germinates beneath the mud, which is a seed of compassion. And then the mud then becomes a fertilizer for the growth of something that emerges in our experience. But also the evolutionary model is an important part of the compassion training too. That kind of tries to view ourselves and the emergence of compassion in quite a broad sweep, going back millennia. So in order to really understand ourselves and understand compassion, we need to have a big view. And the idea of the evolutionary model is actually life is hard. And the reason why life is hard is because we have evolved to survive over millennia. And so this process survival has been a long and difficult journey. So this kind of survival imperative, this negativity bias is often channeled through culture, social conditioning, which that influences in different ways. Sometimes genes get turned off or turned on, certain parts of our being get locked. And then this also gets channeled into our early life and upbringing, our family. So I think what the evolutionary model is saying is actually it's quite a difficult, messy business being a human being. Okay, but nonetheless, we can work in our biology to tap into those parts of us that are more pro-social and more inclining towards compassion. And the idea of this approach is that it's not our fault, this life we find ourselves in. I guess it's not our fault, but when we wake up to what we're in, it's our responsibility to really turn towards those parts of our nature that are more pro-social. So we draw on this model, and in particular, the model of the three emotional systems. That we have a threat system that's very much to do with survival. We have a drive system that again is to do with getting what we need, but we also have a soothing affiliation system that is to do with bringing balance to the drive and the threat and learning to take better care of ourselves. We then tap into this system through imagination practices, mindfulness-based practices, to kind of work in a constructive and creative way with the mud of our life.
Rob Nairn sort of decided he wanted to deliver some mindfulness training and worked with Choden on that. That started in 2008, and so we finished that mindfulness training. And then, as always, our students do, they say, what's next? And at the same time, our teacher and the abbot of Samyeling Tibetan Buddhist monastery, Lama Yeshe Rinpoche, he advised us that we needed to include compassion in our training, that compassion was an important part of our training.
Paul Gilbert, who was one of the key proponents of the evolutionary model, and so the evolutionary model then became a key part of our training. Yeah, he really brought in this principle of not your fault, the idea of if we find ourselves in this messy life, it's not our fault, but yet there are parts of our makeup we can tap into that will really help us turn towards compassion. And also through Paul Gilbert, we met Chris Germer and Christine Neff, and their key work on self-compassion. Some of their work on self-compassion became a key part of our training, like Soften, Soothe, and Allow, and the self-compassion break. And then also Rick Hansen, I think his unique contribution was bringing in the focus on gratitude and appreciation. That even though there is a negativity bias to the brain and we incline towards negative emotion, we can actually work on the positive. And we came to see that in the compassion training, it was so important to also work on cultivating the positive emotions, the gratitude, the appreciation. So I think those are some of the key players and forces that brought about the compassion training.
Yeah, we hope you enjoy it.